There you
Got
go.
it. Now it is. It always gives me a little notification, so I know.
Cool. Well, I found out now. Okay. Well, good morning again.
Good
And
morning.
as we head out into the metaverse and are ready to take, hopefully, some pieces of our audience out there with us, I'm really think it's worthwhile to focus on the ABCs of the metaverse so they at least know
Yeah,
some of what it is because everybody's heard the term, but
right,
nobody really understands what it means. And
right.
so I,
Well,
I
most people I've heard, whenever it comes up in conversation, they're like, "That's just creepy."
yeah, yeah,
That's Terminator stuff, and it's not.
yeah,
So
yeah. It's not take over your brain stuff.
no,
Um,
if anything, I think it's going to be a lot more liberating than that's one of the neat things about the decentralized idea is I don't think most people know how very controlled we are by um, the power players that own the infrastructure of everything. I mean, like the best example I can think of is obviously probably Amazon, where even if you don't necessarily want to shop at Amazon because you're like, I think Jeff Bezos has enough money, it's just so convenient. And then you get the whole idea where they're selling your information, social media and everything. It's free because as that old saying goes, if something's free, you're the so they're selling your information and that's how they make money. So everybody knows that when you're talking about something, like for instance, I've been dancing lately and going out dancing and getting signed up for some dance lessons, and it didn't take but a few messages back and forth before my phone was like, he wants to dance. And so now everything that it feeds me. So it's just we're so controlled by
oh,
that
it
kind
can
of
get
thing. And
insidious, right? Because the
oh yeah,
algorithms are constantly trying to feed you what you want
yeah,
in ways that are profitable to them, right? They're not trying to
precisely.
feed you what you want for your good. It's so that they can make more money.
Yeah,
And
there's no
that's
altruism here.
yeah, yeah, it's not that can be to your detriment at that point. So
Yeah,
uh
for
so
sure.
yeah, it would be nice to have something that was less controlled,
Yeah,
an option to go to. And it would be, I mean, we've learned a lot of lessons from the internet. It would be interesting to see another version of the internet come along that had those lessons incorporated into it. So
yeah, yeah. And I personally, I mean, the more that we've gotten into researching the metaverse and what's going to be possible, the more I get excited. I mentioned, I think a couple of weeks ago when you and I were on here, that I didn't quite get what you were so excited about until, I really started digging in and seeing what we could do. There's a couple of companies right now that are leading the charge, like Meta, that owns Facebook, obviously is the biggest one, but I think there's three main companies, and right now the other two escape me, that are building infrastructure for this metaverse. But then there's all these competitors too that are saying, well, we want to build a part of it the way that we like it you know
mm,
and that's the cool thing about the bells and the whistles. That's why cryptocurrency is what cryptocurrency is that you come up with a new way to build a better mousetrap, and you say, what would be great is if it could also do this. And so then you just create your own, and then you go out looking for people who believe in your mousetrap. Um, and that's why I don't know how many different types of cryptocurrency there are now, just countless probably, because all of them have some, bell or whistle that says it would be great if it could also do X, Y, and Z. And so you create that and then you look for a platform for it. And so I see all of these different companies, developing their part of the Web3 space with, hopefully an eventual goal, some of them, not all of them, but hopefully an eventual goal of moving it into a metaverse kind of setup. And one of my favorite ones was one where you're going to essentially buy a planet,
mhm.
and it seems silly to be buying real estate in a place that doesn't exist, but pretty much everything that we function on, I mean, even the US dollar, for crying out loud, doesn't exist. It doesn't have any inherent value other than the value that we say it has. So in this one particular company, you buy a planet and you do what you want on that planet. Some people, like, there's a couple of examples of them that are already out there that are owned by people within the development, where they put up their personal memories and they're doing it like a life story, walk through my life story, which is neat. What a cool way to do an autobiography, to actually walk from place to place and see the places and see pictures that went along with. And then other people are doing, I'm going to build businesses. I'm going to lease business space. And to be on the front side of that, where you own the planet where something happens, whether that's, let's say it's a cooking planet. Let's say it's, Planet Chef. And you go from place to place and all these different chefs are sharing their information and, they build their own businesses. There's just infinite possibilities, once we do get to that space.
Yeah, what about a planet where you actually got families better connected with each other on the same basis as what you were talking about with the autobiography? Right?
Yeah,
it's limited by the imagination, which is hardly any limit at all.
But yeah, precisely. And the more that they build these sort of plug and play, it reminds me a little bit of back in the old days of MySpace when the first widely used social media platform where you would pimp my space and you would say, I wanted to have this background and I wanted this music playing and I want these animations and I wanted to really feel like me. And then they built all of these plugins that allowed you to, if you couldn't code, like, me, I have no idea how to code anything, but it was just a plug and play. Just swipe this over here and poof, there it is. And they're creating this in some of these realms that are developing metaverse stuff where you can say, I want this building and I want this to go in here. And I've dug through, I don't know, hours and hours of architecture. And some of it is really detailed. And some of it's for dummies like me where, I need a house here. There's a house, it's like playing The Sims. And so you can put all the mods on it that you want. And I think that's what's going to be cool when we take the idea of the universe that you've created in the book series and how cool it would be to move it into a space like that, where we can really get to know these characters and see where they live and, watch their battles actually.
Yeah. And I think that to me is the most interesting thing is to think not just of what we can show our audiences, right? As we bring in artists and we bring in other creative people to help realize this universe, but because it is the metaverse, what other people could bring to the table, what fan art could be and what fan stories could be. And so getting the community involved and getting people to do the same thing they did with Star Wars, right? And Star Trek.
That's a great example. Star Trek and Star Wars. I mean, golly, man, the universe building there is just mind-boggling.
Oh yeah, the Star Wars universe goes backwards and forwards for like 30,000 years, and you don't see all that. You just see little pieces of it, but that whole universe is that timeline was drawn out way back at the beginning. So Lucas was thinking all of this through from the beginning, and was creating and as well as any other creator, that it's not creating a real full-fledged well-realized character is not about just imagining the character. It's about imagining all of his background, right? Where'd he come from? Who is he really? What's been the influences on his life? Those are the things that create characters that are interesting to people, right?
Well, dude, it's like it reminds me of there's one particular scene in, I think it's all the way back in book 1 when Harmon is beginning to see his powers and he's just, mind blown that he has these powers that he didn't realize. And then it goes back and it talks about some little clues that he had when he was playing football for UT. And he would be in one place and then the next moment, without even realizing it, he was on a different part of the field, or he was out of the way of some defensive player, and he realized, wait a minute, I don't think I could have done that in human real time, or watching the game videos, and saying that there was a blur, when you ran, there was a blur right there.
That was how Noble, everybody was, one of the criticism I got is that Noble accepted him being the son of an angel too easily. And I was like, well, Noble already knew this because he was the one who figured out that those game videos were blurring. And he was the one who knew that there was something different about Harmon Wade a long time ago. And he was supporting weight into his detective business and into other things. So he was already a believer
Yeah.
before Harmon came to him and said, "Yeah, I hate to tell you this, but Jack the Ripper was a devil, and we are the children of angels, so we took him on." Right?
Yeah. And Noble goes, "All right, let's do this." You know,
Yeah, yeah.
like,
Well, he already had
yeah.
the next part figured out, right? Because that's Noble for you.
Yeah. Well, you know, you think about that, him as a character. You and I talked about this. You said, you know, when I went back and narrated again the revised editions, and you said Noble's voice changed.
Yeah.
Like, why is he a new character? I'm like, because I didn't realize how integral he was going to become in the story. And as the stories went on and I realized who he was, you know, like he just became such a real person to me that he has a distinct voice in my head. And you think about somebody who came from nothing and built an empire. And I always think about it like, I think, I don't know, I'm speculating here. You set me straight if I'm wrong. But I think you sort of modeled his empire after the HEB, the Henry Butts empire of grocery stores. And people who live in Texas, you know, people who are outside of here would never know this, but there's this devotion to HEB here. Like the HEB brand, you know, normally if you go to a store, whatever the store brand is the cheap off brand, right? Well, here they're like, no, HEB is the good brand. That's where they, you know, that, you know, and there's this dedication because the family who created that grocery store chain really got into the minds and hearts of people and said, what can we create that's an experience that people are going to love to shop here, you know? And if you think about Noble as a character being the guy who gets into the hearts and minds of people and sees through, you know, to their core, it would just make sense that he would, you know, and with his activity with the football program at UT, looking at those kids, you know, and really getting through to the heart of who they are, of course he would find something special and spectacular, you know, about Harmon.
You're right on about HEB. So, and there's so many little places where that plays, like HEB's response to disasters here in LA, response to the flood in Houston is just incredible. And and you know, and mind blowing that you've got a corporation that's that focused on taking care of Texans. And so I love that. And yes, that all gets incorporated in different ways into the NES supermarket. So that would, you know, you want to talk about like metaverse building, that would be another cool thing, is to be able to see, you know, the why the grocery store chain or the, you know, the superstore chain is so spectacular that he has built, why he deserves this empire. A lot of times for me, you know, growing up poor the way that I did, a lot of times I have a negative tendency to look at people with money and say, oh, they must have done something nasty to, you know, to get that. But to have somebody who's genuinely a good human who built something that people love, you know, and is reaping the rewards of that himself, but also dumping it back in massive ways back into the community. It would be cool, you know, in metaverse building to be able to actually, you know, see some of that stuff. So I get excited about that. And I know that, you know, you and I've been talking this past week about what is the link between Web 3 or Web 3.0 and the metaverse, and how does Web 3.0 or Web 3 differ from what we're used to now. And I think that's going to be the main thing, is just communicating to our listenership and our readership why we need to move in this direction in order to continue to expand the world that you've created. That's just characters. The ability to share much richer content with them than I could do on a page, right? Or even in an audiobook, right?
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of, you know, when you initially brought me this idea, and Creatokia, you know, the platform that we're using for this, and you're like, well, they're going to have an NFT for the books. And remember, my first response was, those two things don't agree with each other, because as a writer, you want as many people as possible to read your book. And this is all about exclusivity. You know, NFTs, you set a certain number and there can never be more of them. So why would you want to do that? Until I began to realize that once you build that community and you can continue to share ongoing content that you've created, you know, being part of that community and seeing how it develops, that becomes the experience that you have as a fan of these characters in the world that they live in, the universe that
Yeah,
they
and
live in.
I'm so comfortable on that cutting edge that this whole thing just made perfect sense to me, because
Yeah,
it's not the beginning that counts. I told you when I was at Dell and we opened up a partner division. At that
yeah,
time, we were direct, and Dell was the devil as far as partners were concerned. And we opened up a division, and I was the technical guy supporting every partner in the U.S. back when we first opened. So there was me and 15 sales reps supporting every
yeah.
partner in the U.S. And in the first month, we sold a total of four servers to every partner in
In
the
the whole
U.S.
country.
Yeah, in the whole country. And then 10 years later, when I left that division, I had one partner I was supporting. My quota for one quarter was $50 million. And we did like 5 times our quota. We did like
Wow.
$250 million. And because we were creating the Zynga networks and the other big networks out there with this partner, and they were buying servers, millions of dollars worth of servers every week. And
Wow.
so that's the reality that arose out of that very lackluster beginning. That if you were a practical guy, you'd look at that and go, is there anything here? I'm not practical. I'm always oriented toward the future of things. It's that sci-fi beginning that I had. I think
Yeah.
this is where it can go. And so
Yeah.
I don't care that we only have maybe 50 users to start, right? 50 people
Yeah.
that buy the NFTs. I care about what it'll look like in 5 years or 10 years. And
Yeah.
everybody is saying that although it is it's still really in the womb, it's not even born
Yeah.
yet, that you're looking at something that by 2030, 7 years from now, the
Mhm.
estimates are somewhere between $2 and $10 trillion, not billion, but $1 trillion.
Yeah.
And
Well, in working with the other company that I've done the Web3 development with, an interesting statistic came up in a meeting that right now, I mean, like, this is happening so quickly. I have to qualify this by saying 2 months ago. 2 months ago, the statistic was that there were only 800,000 active users using Web3 platform, and we were talking specifically about gaming NFTs. But in the whole world, there were only 800,000 people using them on a daily basis.
mm-hmm.
And that's a drop in the bucket, of like the number of people who use Facebook, right? But for something that is in its infancy, in its baby in the womb, like you said, that's a great analogy. For something that's in the womb, and 800,000 people have already said, wait a minute, there's something going on here. There's so limited functionality in a lot of these places right now that all you can do is sign up and say, yes, please. I want to be in on the ground floor of that, so that as this continues to develop, I will have already been there. And I think that that's what excites me about it, is that it's the first time, I think in my life, that I've ever been an early adopter, of a new technology. Or you think about, like, oh my God, multi-level marketing. When there's a new multi-level marketing company that comes out that sells supplements or whatever,
Yeah.
the first people that get in get fabulously rich, right? And then it just spreads out, right? And I'm not here for the money. I'm here for the experience of it. But just the idea of being one of the first, early adopters who says, wait a minute, there's something super cool that's about to happen here, and I just want to be part of it.
Well, and I think I don't mean to interrupt, but I was
No,
going
yeah,
to say, really what they're talking about with the metaverse is Internet 3, right?
yeah,
And they're talking about replacing the entire internet
yeah,
with the metaverse eventually.
yeah,
And that's then you start think trillions, right? And you start to
yeah,
think, yeah, what 2/3 of the world's population is on the internet right now?
yeah,
And you're talking about a much more immersive, interesting experience. And so I could see even more of the world's
yeah,
population being involved in more interesting things going on.
yeah.
Not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily have to be VR or AR or whatever, but
Mhm.
just more interactive, just more focused on trying to bring people what they want.
Yeah,
And with the computing power getting to the point where it supports this, it couldn't have happened 10 years ago,
right.
right? But it's getting to the point now where it's beginning to be possible. And you can see it in the games, right?
Yeah,
You can see games like Grand Theft Auto 5,
yeah.
right? Which has become extremely immersive for its game players. And I think I heard it's 7 years old now. What was it, last year, year before last, they did $1 billion in
Wow.
revenue because these people are so immersed in this universe.
Yeah.
And that's why Facebook renamed itself as Meta, and
Yeah.
is losing tens of billions of dollars a year to develop products that will go out into the metaverse,
Yeah.
make the metaverse a reality for
Yeah.
people. So,
well, and a lot of the conversations I feel like that go on are about, why do we need a new internet? What's the difference? And is Web3 going to replace what we know as the .com? You had the first version of the internet where you had to literally type in, I remember I was in high school when we had the first school assembly where we were all taking one class at a time into the library, and we had one computer, and the librarian typed in, 10.192. And it was
on
an
a
IP
56K
address.
modem, right? Or it
So
was probably
yeah,
not even a 56K modem at that point. Yeah.
yeah. And so, and we dial up, and all it was is this blinking cursor. That's
Mm-hmm.
that was it. And she goes, "We're now on the internet." And I just went, what does it do? What do we do with this? And so, you had that iteration. Then you had the AOL iteration where all you had was the content that was statically there.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you could do. And then you went to Web 2.0, where you had the different developers coming in. And that's what we're all accustomed to, when you surf the web every day and when you go to all your different websites. And that's where the development of apps came from. And, it's this huge globalized economy of social and economic interaction, right? So the idea of being able to open up away from the gatekeepers and say, I was just talking day before yesterday, I think, with my daughter about, she likes to play the new Sims game, and she's got all the different mods and stuff where she, builds the houses and changes the outfits and does all the stuff that you do when you play Sims. And
And
I've never
spend some money
really,
on it, right?
yeah, exactly. And I've never gotten into gaming per se, but I'm a huge baseball fan. I go to every baseball game that I can. And just the idea of augmented reality, there's a program that they're developing where when you're at a baseball game, you'll be able to either hold your phone or eventually, hopefully, like the Google Lens glasses kind of thing, where when you look at a player on the field, right next to him will pull up all of his stats and everything, where you can, and that kind of idea to me, for somebody who's not even really into gaming, to be able to go to a baseball game and pull all that stuff up, instantly. That's just that idea of Web3, where anybody can develop and anybody can put stuff out there of value to a niche as opposed to value to the masses. Facebook is for the masses, but a lot of us have individual passions and desires and needs, and it opens up, a world to so many different niche sort of markets. And that's what I think we're doing with the book, is like, we just want people who are super into this universe and like all of the gods and the goddesses and the characters that are there, and how everything works with the magic and how the religious mythos, figures in. I'm just excited to be part of like a community who gets it the way that I do and who loves it the way that I do, so that we can just interact. I was thinking the other day, after you and I talked, that one of the complaints about WebTs and NFTs is, when you buy a token, they're expensive, and you and I were talking about why is it that somebody would spend a premium amount to own a piece of something, other than just the pride of ownership. And a lot of people say, well, it's for nerds with money, and it's not like a huge amount of money. I mean, like some of them are $60, whatever. But we were talking about, you spend money on the toys that you like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it suddenly occurred to me right after you and I got off the phone, they've said for a long time that the age of the country club is dead, right? The stuffy country club where everyone went to go eat and you hobnob and you rub elbows and play golf, and country clubs have been struggling because that age is dead. And I thought to myself, this is like a modern replacement. You get people who are like-minded, have the same interests,
Mm-hmm.
have the ability, and understanding to go hang out with a group of their peers. But instead of it being, this stuffy place on the edge of town, you're literally connected to people around the planet who are into the same thing that you are. And I think that's a cool way to use, if you want to call it exclusivity. The whole point is just getting hooked up with people who love what you love. you know?
And I mean, games are the perfect example of that, right? Because that
Yeah.
and that is really the early examples of the metaverse are these games like Fortnite, where
Yeah.
you can bring any character from any universe that you want into the game.
Yeah.
It's just a piecemeal thing that allows you to take your interest, bring them into the game, and have them be part of the game. And
Fortnite's a great example. Yeah. Yeah, for sure, man.
so yeah, so there's and games I think are leading the way, but really it's not all about games.
No.
It's not all about books. It is all about creators though, and that's
Yeah.
one word I heard in the entire Meta presentation that Facebook gave the other day. It was over an hour long. I can't tell you how many times they said creator, right?
Yeah.
And so they're looking for this new universe to be a very creative place.
Yeah.
And to do that, you have to have creators. You have to have coders, and you have to have creators. And so
Yeah.
I love that. And
Yeah, man.
and it may start with games, but where are we going to go next, right? It's like
Yeah.
where can we go with good coding and good creators? Where can you take something? You get the best creative minds on the planet involved in something that is going to be that huge, and
Yeah.
where can it go versus being locked up and shut down by the initial guys that do it, like the Facebooks, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. And I don't know. It's just, it gets exciting to me. I can literally sit there and daydream about all the, like, I want to buy a planet. I literally do. And I want to just put all the things that I think are cool on that planet so that anybody who thinks that stuff is cool can come hang out with me there, you know? And I know people get weirded out about like being an avatar. You know, you think about those sci-fi movies where people just put on like a VR headset and they just sit down and they never move again for the rest of their lives, right? And they just sit there and they live in this fake world. And I'm sure that there's some risk of it's like overindulging in anything, whether it's booze or whatever the deal is, right? You could overindulge, but also you think about, we all have shows that we like or movies that we like to go see. And what if you could just go see a show or a movie with a whole bunch of people just like you that are going to enjoy it the same way that you are, So if you've got your entertainment time in your day, and that happens to be, we all go to movie theaters sometimes. Well, your movie theater, becomes a planet on the metaverse where you go and everybody likes whatever that, genre is that you have or whatever. I'm excited about the way that it stands the chance of bringing people together in a super cool way who wouldn't meet each other otherwise.
Yeah, and it's interesting the environments that we're talking about here. I've seen houses that in the metaverse that were just beautifully put together with
Yeah.
with fake fireplace, but it still had that warm look to it, with screens on the walls, with
Yeah.
wood all over the place, so that it and just beautiful detail.
Yeah.
And that was interesting, but it was still four walls and a ceiling and a floor,
Yeah.
versus Tokyo, which went back and spent what $50 million
To recreate the
recreating
entire city.
city in the metaverse, and you who are talking about entire planets, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
where do we go? Where does reality have to stop when you're talking about something that's virtual?
Yeah. Well, see, and like my hang up originally when a lot of this stuff came up was, when cryptocurrency came up, I think Bitcoin was worth $100 when I found out what it was. When it came across my desk, I was doing financial planning and I was like, oh my God, this is just, this has no value. This will never go anywhere. Boy, am I kicking myself. You know what I mean? And so beginning to understand
$60,000 later. And of course, now it's
Yeah.
down to 16, but what the heck? It's
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
16,000 out of nothing, out of 100.
Yeah. Well, it was worth 12 cents when it first, when they came up with the idea, it was worth 12 cents. That's why it was a bit, right?
Yeah.
And they say the first thing that was ever purchased was a pizza. You had to get enough people to believe that it was worth something that you could buy a pizza with Bitcoin, right? And so, realizing, okay, this definitely is a thing. Then NFTs came along and I'm like, man, I don't know what non-fungible tokens are. I don't want to learn some damn new technology, until I realized what an integral part of Web3 that's going to be, to say I own I'm a member of this club, basically, that is into whatever. Like you even take like the Trump NFT. Donald Trump sold his trading cards, 10,000 of them or whatever. for $100 each. And you know, it's for people who want to be in a club of like-minded people. And so the NFT, once you get past the idea, it's nothing but a trading card. Basically, you're buying a trading card of sorts. So your NFT is just a trading card, that it's a membership card to a community that does something. And there's an infinite number of possibilities of what that community can do. So once you get past that sticking point, I feel like, of, God, I've got to learn a new technology, it's really not that hard. You open up a separate wallet, right? Like you were going through the whole process with Creatopia. You know, you're like, okay, it's like opening a bank account, right? All right, I'm gonna open this account, and now I can use that to get my membership card into whatever club this is. And I'm just, dude, like I'm on Discord now all the time, finding new people that have got new projects, you know,
I'd love to buy into Discord. It looks like one of the more interesting things going on out there right now.
Oh, dude, yeah.
And yeah, there is a learning curve, but there's a learning curve to everything, right? Yeah. And that learning curve will get shorter. I know Neil Stephenson, the guy that created the term metaverse in the first place, for a novel called Snow Crash that he wrote back in 1992.
Wow.
Right? He's now involved in his latest venture is a new cryptocurrency that is focused on creators, and it's focused on letting creators move into this metaverse and move into the cryptocurrencies in ways that are familiar to them. So he's trying to bridge that gap between what we know and what can be.
Oh, you got to send me the link to that.
Yeah,
send me the link to that. I got to check that.
Laminate One was the name of the project that he's working on now.
That's cool. Yeah, I don't know, man. I continue to be excited. When we were on the phone with Yasim the other day, and just thinking about, you know, like my previous book with Hemingway, with the, you know, the music. Anytime you can come up with something new, create anything new, it's like this gives you a new avenue to open a part of your mind that says, well, what could I do with it if there were a group of people, you know, who were really bought into the idea of whatever that is.
Especially when it's 50, more powerful, right? I mean, the Hemingway project that you did is so powerful. It made me cry, right? Which
makes me cry.
Yeah, I don't find myself that moved by books, but when you put the music with the book, and the music explains the book so well and draws you into the drama of the book, then you just get that much more involved. So
and so now I'm rethinking, you know, what are the possibilities, and you almost have to just like sit there and still yourself and just open your mind to say, okay, if there were no limits, like that's a weird shift to make. You know, we're so used to living in a physical world where everything has physical limits. You have to to think about Web3, to think about metaverse possibilities. You literally go, what if there were no limits? What would you do if you could do anything, you know? And that's what it feels like. So I think it's been
cool. I know we've got about 1 minute left, but I do want to throw a little kudo out to Creatopia, which is hosting all of this stuff. And Creatopia is a subsidiary of Bookwire, which is one of the biggest publishers in Europe. So it's a real venture. They are providing the framework for it to take us out there. And to me, that is the really important part. To me, that's the heavy lifting, is get that framework together, figure out how it all works, and then show us the path. And we can choose to take it or not at that point. And to me, that's been maybe the most exciting thing about all of this. So thank you, Creatopia, right?
Exactly, man.
Cool, so buddy. I think we're out of time here, and darn it, just getting started again.